Party.
Hello, welcome to the party.
Hi, I've never met you before.
I know.
Just two guys and we're having a good time. Having a good time. Having a good time. Just two guys and we're having a good time. Having a good time.
Hi, I'm Micah Roderick. I'm here with John Anderson. This is the first episode of Just Two Guys. It's hard to explain what our show is really going to be about. It's just a couple guys sitting around talking about topics that they have no expertise in. But we're going to start off the show, and I give John a second here to say a few things if he wants to, but we're going to start the show interviewing each other just to get to know us, and then we will go into a segment on local history, and then we've got a special little project we'd like to talk about at the end. John, is there anything you'd like to talk about?
I think that's about all. I'd like to get into these questions.
All right, we've got some very interesting questions. These are questions that we have no prior knowledge of. We're asking each other. The boundaries are pretty unlimited, so I don't know what we're going to get here. I tried to stay...
Well, we really wanted to ask questions that the other one didn't know the answer to in advance, so we couldn't work up answers. And also, it's a good way to get to know someone by just collecting all these little pieces of information. So
I'm scared.
No, don't be scared.
Okay. Well, John, go ahead and flip the coin to see who goes first.
I'm not very good at this, so it's probably going to end up in our
end
coffee.
up on the floor, the coffee or something.
What do you want?
Oh, shoot. That was just tails.
It's tails.
So, wait, what does that
you
mean?
You go first.
Okay. We got to learn the rules.
We really got to work on this.
Some of the oldest games in the world. Okay. John, do you believe you were born at the right time and place?
No. Definitely not.
Explain.
Well, I don't really like this time period very much, and I find myself doing a lot of research on the 19th century. My job entails that I do a lot of research on the 19th century.
What part of the 19th century? Like, I mean, are you talking about United States, 19th century, Europe, 19th century?
Probably the U.S., 19th century.
Okay.
I'm thinking of, I don't know, somewhere in the hills where Walt Whitman might have been walking around.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. Very
interesting.
Abraham Lincoln, you know, I kind of dig that time period a lot.
The mid-1800s.
Yeah.
Mid to late.
Not necessarily during the Civil War, but, you know, around that time period.
Before and after, probably after the Reconstruction.
Yeah, right here in Sangamo County.
Oh, right here in
Sangamo Town.
See, well, you're in the right place,
yeah,
just the wrong time.
I guess so. Okay. Is it my turn now?
John, go.
You bump into your boss outside of the office. Would you rather embarrass yourself out of drunkenness or illness?
I'd rather embarrass myself out of drunkenness.
Really?
Because if you're going to do it, if you're going to embarrass yourself, embarrassment's embarrassment. I think there's some understanding that if you're drunk, you're going to be a little, do a little crazy thing.
So you would rather take the full responsibility than have it be something that's out of your control.
Right.
Excellent.
Right.
Nice choice.
But, if it actually came down to it, I'm sure I'd pick illness. But, it's more interesting answer to say drunkenness.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
All right. Do you think people see you the way you see yourself?
No, I don't.
Explain.
Well, I think that I tend to have a lower opinion of myself than I think other people do.
Okay.
For example, my wife, I think, thinks that I'm a nice person and I'm very respectable or something.
Right.
But I don't know. I just don't. I feel like I'm, just a regular guy. I don't know. I do feel like people think differently of me than I think of myself, and I don't know why that is.
That's probably normal.
Yeah, I guess.
That's probably normal. I mean,
I'm
not supposed to answer these questions, but I feel the same way. I mean, but I think everybody has kind of an inner ego that they, would like to portray.
It's kind of like what you talked about yesterday, or a few days ago on the blog, that I don't remember what you said, but it was about, do you know?
I don't remember. Oh yeah, I know what I said that it's not out of modesty, but for some reason I tend to disagree with the way people, categorize me.
Right.
I don't like to be thrown into a category. If somebody says that I'm too city, I want to say, no, I'm
Right.
country. Or if somebody says I'm too country, I want to say, no, I'm too city. Because I don't want to be in the category that people put me in for some reason.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing.
And I think I do that too. I think a lot of people do, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. If you had to be lost in the wild, would you rather be lost in the Mojave Desert or the Arctic Circle?
I would say the desert. The Arctic Circle does not provide anything of interest to me. I mean, it doesn't. It's
Really?
wildlife light at certain times of year.
Okay.
But the
So you think you'd stand a better chance of survival in the Mojave Desert?
I don't know. I think both areas of it are,
Technically, I think they're both considered deserts.
well, they are kind of deserts. I think
But-
they're both deserts.
But okay, so you'd choose the Mojave.
I don't know why I'm picking the desert. I feel like I can walk out of the desert easier than I can walk out of the frozen ice of the Arctic.
Well,
And what kind of interesting people are you going to meet in the Arctic
I don't know, but
besides?
I think freezing is
weird
probably a lot
scientists?
less painful than dehydration and all that other stuff. Anyway, your next
We'll
question.
agree to disagree on that one.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't really. That's a good question, though. It's
Thanks.
probably something that requires more thought on my part.
Yeah, these are all off the cuff. So
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Would you? And I know that you're a film fan. Would you rather see a movie with a tragic conclusion or a romantic wrap-up?
tragic.
I knew that you would say that. Explain that.
It's just that's one of my biggest pet peeves about movies is that they always have to sort of come through in the end and have this happy ending, and I don't think that's very realistic, and I don't think it's
my
very
wife
satisfying.
would beat you over the head for saying that because.
No, I always feel, well, I mean, some movies, I guess it's appropriate for that type of
Right.
ending, but for the most part, I feel that I could do without that. It's not very realistic in a lot of cases, I think.
It does. That's probably true.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun, like if you chop the movie off without the last 10 minutes so that you end at a point where you think it's really tragic, then that's sometimes better than playing the whole thing.
So you won't be seeing the big romance movies of the summer, I take it.
Maybe, I don't know. That's a good question, too.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. Who's your favorite historical figure? And I have a
Oh.
follow-up to this, by the way, too.
I think who's been intriguing me for the past few years has been James Madison.
James Madison, and what's so interesting about James Madison?
He was not the greatest writer, orator, but as a thinker and as the father of the Constitution, and it's not just, he just doesn't have that title because they're looking for a fun title for him. The guy had brilliant ideas on the future of the country, and his foresight for this country, the generalization in the Bill of Rights, read the Federalist Papers, or the papers that he'd written. Although Hamilton was a pretty good person on that end, but I mean his foresight into the future of the country and the Civil War was on the horizon, but the country was far too young to deal with it at that point.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Now
Wasn't a great president. I won't say he's a great president, but
Okay. Well, now I have a quick follow-up.
mhm.
Who is your favorite historical figure known to commit acts of cannibalism? Quickly.
I
We
don't
only
know
have
who
a couple of
ate
minutes
somebody
left.
else. I don't know.
Well,
who?
Well, I mean, you have to know of some.
I can assume. I mean,
What about the Donner Party? That- you could
Did
choose the-
Genghis Khan? Was he?
I don't think he was
He was
cannibalistic.
quite the
necessarily.
terror. I don't know who.
We'll just say the Donner Party. They're from
The
Springfield.
Donner Party.
so-
All right, we'll go with the
That
Donner
works.
Party. On that
Okay.
one.
So I think we have to wrap it up. We've only got about a minute.
Yeah. Let's. This very good questions. I've learned a lot.
Some of these I have to hold on to for next time.
Yeah. No. I've got some good questions coming up, but I think that this was pretty informative.
Yeah, I could tell I shocked you with the
I
cannibal.
was a little shocked, and the desert, Arctic question just completely threw me. I don't
Yeah.
know the answer to that one.
That's okay.
Rock in a hard place.
Yeah, I know.
Totally. All right.
I'm glad I asked.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so for today's local history segment, we're going to talk about one of what I think is the coolest stories in Sangamon County history, and it's just something that we learned about after we started researching the show. It's the story of Sangamo Town, and it's really the story of, I don't know, I mean, a lot of people complain about how politics, works in the city right now and in the county, and the story of Sangamo Town, I think, is a great beginning to that.
Yeah, and why is it why is it just in the history books? Why are we not traveling through Sangamo Town? Why is there no Sangamo Town Titans High School?
It's not even really in the history books. I mean, we've had to go to the Sangamon Valley
Right.
collection to find information on it. But it's a cool story. So how do you want to start this?
Well, I just, first of all, for people who don't know where Sangamo Town is located, it's the way we understand is if you, get to Bradfordton,
Right.
and then you go directly north, and when you hit the Sangamon River, around that bend on a bluff is where Sangamo Town once sat. It's probably
Right.
on private property at
Yeah,
this point.
I think they consider it Gardner Township now.
Right.
Or
right.
they have in the past.
It's people do know about it and where it is, but there's hardly any
No, it's
remnants
completely gone
left
now.
of
Right.
it. But it only survived for about 25 years.
Right.
In the early.
Well, do you want to tell the story of what happened?
Yeah, I mean, what happened was let's get to my notes here.
The good stuff.
Moses Broadwell was the one who was the founder.
Right.
There were about 100 plots initially, and people bought it up by what was it? Late 1820s. It was the same size as Chicago.
1831. It was
1831. It was the same size as Chicago,
At
which is
250
at
people.
250 people. It was a
Right.
massive metropolis.
Right.
But it was large for its time, and the reason it was large is because it had three different things that people saw economically. It had the river,
Right.
which at that point they did not know was not a very navigable river.
Yeah,
they
they
saw
found
it
that out
as a
later.
good port area, but as it turns out, it wasn't great. It had a sawmill. Put a sawmill in
Right.
there, and had plenty of timber.
And a grist mill.
Yeah.
Right.
So there were a lot of things working for it at the time. But if you want to explain the Lincoln connection.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is the place. Sangamo Town is where Lincoln stopped and built his flatboat before he took his trip down the Mississippi River, where he ended up in New Orleans, and he saw the slave trade, the slave auction, and that was what really got him interested in, combating slavery. But that's sort of the Lincoln connection, and so I'm surprised that in this area they haven't recovered the area and sort
It's
of
a big
made it
part
a
of
Lincoln
it's
site.
a big part of Lincoln history because that's where the big flatboat was,
Right.
was
And
built. And
a lot of the local historians of the time who were writing their memoirs talk about Lincoln a lot,
Right.
coming to visit there.
Right. It's not on the level of New Salem by any means because he didn't live there,
Right.
but it was a part of that time period and that history.
Well, around here there's the sort of the joke that Lincoln stopped and went to the bathroom here, so we've got to turn it into a
right.
site.
Exactly, and we completely
Right.
Well, that site died long before Lincoln's history even
Really
came
got
about.
going. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, so
By 1845, it was pretty.
there was
much
no
done.
reason to save it because Lincoln was pretty much an unknown lawyer
True.
in Springfield by the time it had died.
That's true.
He was still working his way up.
Well, let's talk about the cool story.
the cool story.
Yeah. Do you want me to start that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in about the mid-1820s, they needed to decide who was going to be a representative from Sangamon County for the state of Illinois. The race was J.H. Pugh, he was Springfield's candidate, and William S. Hamilton, who is the son of Alexander Hamilton, right?
Yes.
He was
the fifth son.
the fifth son, right? He was the candidate from Sangamo Town. So they ran. William S. Hamilton won. He got the representative position for Sangamon County, and then they needed to decide which town would be the county seat for Springfield. So J.H. Pugh was really mad. He wanted to block this any way he could.
Mhm.
So when the committee showed up in Springfield to decide which town was going to be the county seat, J.H. Pugh worked with Elijah Iles to put together this really good proposal, that we'll give a certain amount of land to them for county buildings and money and all this stuff. And then, but the committee actually came and they looked at the site in Springfield and they said, this isn't that great. We don't really like it. It's swampy. It's kind of gross.
Springfield was a kind of a swampy,
Right.
ugly area. It wasn't like the land we think it is.
Yeah, and they were pretty unimpressed. So as they were getting ready to leave to go to Sangamo Town, Elijah Iles convinced them that they needed to take a guide. And their guide was, what's his name? Andrew Elliott. He was a local woodsman. And he took them. It's actually a 7-mile trail from Springfield to Sangamo Town at the time. He took them 30 miles through swamps and timbers. They crossed Spring Creek 3 or 4 times.
Right.
And by the time they arrived in Sangamo Town, this committee was so disgusted with how long it took to get there. They liked the city. They liked that Sangamo Town was on a bluff on the river. They thought it had a lot of potential, but they just wouldn't listen to reason. They thought it was too hard to get.
Isles railroaded Sangamo Town.
Yes.
And I know he's a great, Springfield figure. He's the Jedediah Springfield of Springfield.
But he really put nails in the coffin of Sangamo Town.
Yeah.
So these guys, they came back to Springfield. They said, oh, yeah, this is going to have to be it because it's the lesser of two evils, obviously.
It's too hard to get to Sangamo Town.
So Elijah Isles had his wife cook a nice dinner, filled their bellies. They were happy. He gave them 40 acres and a bunch of money to build the building, and so that's how Springfield became the county seat.
Isles was a savvy guy. I mean, he knew what he was doing.
I
And
guess.
he had his economic interests. He called the people of Sangamo Town just, they were just a bunch of, people looking for a quick dollar, which exactly what, Isles was doing here in Springfield. So it was a nice little political move. But the reasoning, there are different reasons for why Sangamo Town died. The reason is that Sangamon River was never that navigable. I soon found that out.
Right.
The area, you just mentioned this today, it was between a river and a creek where the plats were, and it just didn't have a lot of room to grow.
It was built on a hill. There was nowhere for it to
expand. Right. But, how many towns in Illinois have been built on a small river with a creek running through it? I mean, they actually turn out to be very nice scenery. And
sure.
With technology, you learn to control the river your own way if you build on it. So those reasons are pretty good, but the Isles story is the one that convinces me the most.
That was a dirty thing to do.
It was a dirty trick.
So low down.
I mean, and I know that, we're in Springfield, we shouldn't bash Isles, but
his street's okay, I guess. But
yeah, I know. I guess I like the street.
That was
I'm not knocking that guy, I guess. I just think it was kind of a dirty move.
No, and it was revenge motivated. I mean, they wanted the representative position. They didn't get it, so they were going to do whatever they could to get Sangamo Town off the map. Something else that I think is kind of interesting about Sangamo Town was that in the early 1830s, it was growing. I mean, people were showing up 50 or 100 at a time.
Well, they were advertising it on the East Coast.
Right.
Easterners were showing up.
Right, and there was a big
Town.
influx of people at that time. They had their own newspaper. They had, they actually had a reporter who worked for the St. Louis newspaper at the time. I'm not sure what it was at the time, who was doing local reporting. He was a physician, and they, in the early 1830s, got together and decided they wanted someone from Sangamo Town to run for the governorship of Illinois. So they got General James Henry. He decided he would do it. He had a good name. He had I guess at the time, was well known in the area. And he started running and died about 2 months into the race.
Yeah, it was completely bad luck. If the guy had succeeded in being governor, Sangamo Town, we'd be right on the south end of Sangamo Town right now. And Springfield
this would be Sangamo Town's access for it.
Sangamo Town would be Rochester.
Yeah.
Or Springfield would be Rochester, and Sangamo Town would be the big city in the area. But I don't know. That's how the cookie crumbles. You just got to look back in history. And
I guess, but what's so fascinating to me is that there's just no mention of this. I grew up here. I never
knew about it.
No.
And we're just we represent a completely different generation of Springfield. We're just now discovering the history of Springfield. We didn't care about it when we were younger. We knew about a lot of the Lincoln stuff. But we didn't really pay attention to the other stuff that was going around here. So it's kind of interesting to look at this and just see the little things that occurred that could have been but are not.
Yeah, and I really love to go out there sometime and take a look around where the site is.
Yeah.
But apparently there's nothing left. I mean, it's just a...
Yeah, I'm wondering about, there was a cemetery out there. I mean, obviously people lived there for 25 years. People died. There was a cemetery. I don't know if there was markers out there or...
I don't know.
Or what, but...
People died there?
They all took downstream and died.
Yeah.
Maybe stuck them in the river, I don't know.
Yeah, that's very bizarre.
Yeah. You're being facetious now. We're talking about history.
I know. What I thought was kind of neat, though, is at the time, that was the wagon road that ran from Springfield to New Salem, was right along the Sangamon, and of course that's where it ran right through.
Right.
What else about Sangamo Town?
Well, you know, it's been written about several times since.
C.C. Brown had a book.
Right, and then let's see, there were a couple other. Let's see, one of the relatives from down the line wrote a book in the, I guess in the 50s or the early 60s. Wrote an article.
This is the one that you were talking about.
Right, right, and a very good history of relative, and I think that's where a lot of the Isles story comes from. Is that
from his family?
Right, from that family. So. It's not like it's completely forgotten. You can go down to the Sangamon Valley collection at the city library, a great resource for any local history. And they do have files on it, and they have a few books and reports on it, and you can learn a lot about it and where it was. They have the plat laid out. There were 3 big streets: Main Street, Mill Street, and Bridge Street.
Okay.
And I guess the Bridge Street was meant and built so that, you know, eventually there would be a bridge built across the river, which makes me think they did have
a plan.
They did have more of a plan than just that, you know, the 100.
Yeah.
You know, house.
It's
plat.
something that I think about now when I'm driving around out in that area. I'm thinking of all of the, you know, people were coming here and settling, and all the history that's around that you don't get. You know, when you're reading these books about the entire county and when things are being settled and little villages that popped up and then disappeared. And these are things that we don't even remember anymore. I mean,
no.
You're driving through places that at one time housed small settlements, and they're gone now.
Right. And very interesting people live there. I mean, the fact that Alexander Hamilton, I mean, he's on money. The guy's like huge.
That you've made it.
He would have been president if he'd not gone out and taken on that Vice President Burr. You know, I don't know why he actually decided to do that, although I have my own theories on that.
Well,
Burr and Hamilton was not supposed to. Hamilton did not shoot at Burr. Burr was not supposed to shoot at Hamilton. Burr took a cheap shot.
Well, but getting back to William Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton's son, he was, you know, sort of gave up all of his Eastern education to come here and become a frontiersman.
Yeah.
I mean, he really wanted to be a frontiersman and make it on the frontier, and I don't really understand that either. So that's somebody that we'll look into for the future.
He eventually, though, went further west, though. He went up to Galena and then out to San
into
Francisco.
Wisconsin, yeah.
So, yeah. So, well, that's a very good discussion on Sangamo Town. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. We'll learn more and maybe talk about it later.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. We're also here to announce a little project. This is an experimental project. John and I have a blog. It's called just2guys.blogspot.com.
Yeah.
Between the just and then spelled out two and guys, there are dashes. So just2guys.blogspot.com.
It's right here.
It's right across
or
here.
Somewhere
in here. Anyway, that's kind of that's kind of our meeting point outside of the show. But we wanted to start a volunteer project that resembles, but we're kind of getting more into the future here, more technology. It resembles community theater, except it's on film. It's called the Springfield Community Movie Project. It's completely experimental. Nothing we've ever heard of it as you know. I've never heard of another community doing this, but
no, I've seen a lot of no-budget film communities, but no budget apparently means lots of money.
No budget and opening up the entire community to participate. Right. What we are just the middle guy.
Facilitators.
We're the facilitators. Right. We have nothing to do with it, but we just want to see it happen because, you know, we want to see the art community in Springfield flourish and, you know, having new ideas outside of, you know, actual community theater. This is a whole new area.
What do you envision for sort of the timeline for the project, the steps, I guess, that it would take to get?
Well, since this is new and experimental, it's going to be difficult to say. We are going to put all this stuff on our blog.
And we're still working out a lot of details.
We're working on a lot of details, but we just want to provide an equal opportunity outlet for the community to work on, you know, be a part of any aspect of the filmmaking experience. So we want to start off by getting somebody to submit a script, or if, you know, several people want to submit scripts, then we will have to step in and choose one. Now, when we say submit a script, we just mean, you know, not line by line, word by word, but at least an idea, a synopsis, and maybe even a scene by scene, so we have an idea what it is. the only real qualifications we have, because we don't want to limit art, is Springfield has to be, the supporting actor in the film. It has to be in the background at all times.
It has to be a character.
It has to be a character in the film. And we do want to limit it to, I don't know, let's say 30 to 45 minutes, because we would at some point, if it's suitable for air, and we're hoping that it would be, to show at some point, either at a film festival or on our show. We could show it in 2 parts,
right? Just
depending on what we can do.
Something that I think that we talked about the other day is that we're really looking for any format that this story can be told. It could be, if it's a camcorder, if it's a nicer camera, something that people already have.
We have to make it accessible, because it's a completely volunteer project.
Or animation. If there's somebody in the area who can do animation,
some animation,
that would be a route to go.
Yeah. So there's several areas to go. It's just in beginning stages, but we are throwing it out there that we'll start with trying to gather a script. We will move to trying to recruit somebody who's interested in directing. So once we have or it could be one and the same people. Once we have them, plan on having them on our show, talk about it, and then use that as a recruiting tool for people who are interested in the technical side or interested in the acting side. Just involve everybody in the community. I don't want to see one segment of the community involved. I want a broad reach.
As many people as we can.
Right.
Sort of.
Right.
Get the ball rolling and get as many people involved in any way that we can.
Right.
I mean, anyone.
And we would just use our email address or our blog for people to come in and say, I'd like to be interested, and then we provide that information to the director, and we're just kind of the middleman and allowing it to happen. I mean, we'd like to see this happen. It's completely experimental.
Because I care less about the format, I guess, than I do about the story that's being told.
Right.
Although if it has a really cheesy romantic ending, that's what I really would hope for.
I don't know. We're going to discuss that one, because I think there are some people who like that ending, a particular gender. I don't want to generalize.
Let's not do that here.
By any means. Well, no. I mean, a good film is a good film. That's what we're looking for.
Right, the story is what we're looking for.
Right, yes. We're looking for a good story, and just the opportunity for people to work on this and have fun, show it, if it's really good, I mean, get it submitted.
Or if it's really bad, maybe
Or if it's really bad, we take
somewhere.
all the credit for...
Bury it in Sangamo Town, where no one will ever find it.
We're going to put it in Sangamo Town.
Yeah, that's
the Sangamo Town Film Festival.
The Sangamo Town Film Festival will recreate it.
William Hamilton's memory.
Originally we were talking about this idea, and it was like, historical stuff. But without a budget, it's impossible to recreate historical sets. So we've got to really think about that sort of thing.
The key is it's completely no budget. We're not even trying to start a non-profit here. We just want to get people involved.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's the project. We'll be updating it as much as we
Look for it on the blog tomorrow or in the next couple of days.
Yeah, we'll be talking about it. So
all right.
Join us next time.
On Just Two Guys.
Just Two Guys. Thanks.
Hello, welcome to the party.
Hi, I've never met you before.
I know.
Just 2 guys and we're having a good time. Having a good time. Having a good time. Just 2 guys and we're having a good time. Having a good time.